Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Stay Connected webinar. Today's presenter is Erica Wibbels from the Nebraska Department of Education, and she's going to teach us more about the 40 developmental assets. Erica, we really appreciate your work on this project and your time today.
You bet. Thanks for having me. I am going to pull up my PowerPoint. So one moment here. All right. And okay. Feel free to put any questions or comments in the chat as you may have them. So my title today is called Everyone's an Asset Builder, and that will really get into our 40 developmental assets. This training is conducted through Search Institute. They are an organization out in Minneapolis, and they started doing research in the 1980s and really questioned why do some kids succeed and grow up with relative ease, and other kids just really struggle. And is it really their environment, or what factors lead to that and lead to them being able to be successful in the future? And so they've been doing research since the 1980s, so they've got quite a bit of that. And they really came upon these 40 developmental assets that were either established in these kids and demonstrated with these kids as they grew up. And then to piggyback on that, as they've continued to do the research, they're still doing research today, really that relationship piece. And so that's where we'll really take this training and then open it up for you guys to think about how you guys can use this in your after school worlds, or at home with your kids or grandkids, or, even with your colleagues. So the little disclaimer at the NDE, our mission is really to lead and support the preparation of all Nebraskans for learning, earning, and living. If you're a checklist type person and you want to know what we're doing today, this is the screen for you. I am pausing here because I want you to use a QR code to get the handouts. Those handouts, page 1 and 2, give you a better overview of Search Institute, who they are, what kind of role they've done, and what kind of work they've done. They do not have a program per se. They don't believe in a program. They believe it's intentional efforts being put forth. And so they give some ideas and some resources for people to utilize to be able to help grow the 40 developmental assets in students, but there's no program. And so the first 2 pages will be that. The third page, you'll notice, is the actual 40 developmental assets, which we'll dive into. And then there's some handouts. We'll dive into those as well, but you hopefully now have been able to pull that up. So really starting at the foundation of asset building, and can I be an asset builder with students and also with whoever you're dealing with. Baseline foundation here, all people need assets, not only young people. But a researcher had found out that looked extensively at young people who persevere and grow up healthy in spite of significant stress and difficulty. He noted that such resilient youth had at least one adult who cared deeply for them. He describes this caring as an irrational love, and adds that youth who have more than one adult are just luckier. So, it doesn't matter what that kid does, they're still going to feel supported and loved by that one adult. Another foundation is everyone can build assets. It's never too early. It's never too late to start building assets. So that's good news for all of us adults here, right? There's much research on adult development that points to the impact of positive peer influence on healthy growth and development. So really, we can look to our students to be that asset builder in each other. And so not only can we take what we're going to learn today to a staff level, but to really integrate that into the students and helping each other succeed. The next one is relationships are key. I mentioned that earlier, but it's really about the people and making those connections and investing in each other there. Another one is asset building is an ongoing process. So it's not like, all right, I've done this training, check it off, I'm now a pro, right? Like it's a continual thing that we make an effort to and make a focus on. There are some assets you'll see that you may naturally do, and there's some that you don't. And so working on being intentional to do the ones that are easier first and then growing from there. Consistent messages are crucial. So the longer we hear something, then the more we believe it. I just, another study I had found that said naturally the human mind retains and hangs on to all those negative messages more than the positive. And so we're really trying to overcompensate those negative messages. Repetition is important. We all know that. The more you practice something, the better you get, the more you believe it, right? The more confidence you grow. So same here with this. Start early, but it's never too late. So now that we laid the foundation, I want you guys to get out a scratch piece of paper or type it in your phone or whatever. But I want you to think about someone who was or is an asset builder in your life, which means that they made a positive impact on you. And then once you've thought of that person, you're going to record on your note card or whatever you're using about that person. What has allowed them to have a positive impact in your life? And if you can't think of a specific person, that's okay. You can just write down, having a idea of a person in mind. What would they do to make a positive impact? So for instance, when I initially did this training and activity, I had wrote down my brother. And so he helped me with homework. He invited me into liking his same sports teams, whatever it was and is for you guys. So I'm going to give you I have 2 minutes on the screen, but since we're in a tight timeline here, I'll just give you a minute to do that right now. All right. Hopefully you've got a couple ideas wrote down of what that person, how they made a positive impact on you. We're going to now take that and anything that you put on that card or that note, I want you to put a plus sign or whatever you have available to you, characteristics of that person. And then I want you to put a star next to items that reflect what that person does or did. So characteristics, it might be like that person was always just bubbly and happy. And what they did for me was they always gave me a hug when they saw me, whatever that may be. So go on wherever you took your notes of that positive asset builder, put plus signs and stars. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that. If anyone wants to share anything in the chat about the person, They sure can, that you picked or why. It's always kind of fun to see that. This little image here on the bottom of the screen is kind of fun. What differentiates those who are actively building transformational assets is that they are changing themselves and the way the world sees them. So sometimes we don't always give ourselves credit, but it's really what we're presenting to the world and how we're affecting them. So a little bit of a cliff dive here. I got you kind of engaged. I want you to hang on to that information, that card or whatever you wrote on, and your sign, your plus sign and your star. And we'll come back to really thinking about like, oh, how did that make them? How did the plus sign, their characteristics and what they did make them a asset builder in my life and a positive person? So I want to dive right into the 40 developmental assets. Again, I have the QR code. So if you need to pull that back up, page 3 is where you're going to see the 40 developmental assets that we'll be talking about. And so I have the actual paper. Sometimes you can't see it very good in Zoom, but this is what we're looking at. And so there's 2 types of assets. You'll see on the top part of your page are external assets, and then the bottom is the internal assets. And so those external assets we know are those that are from the environment that provide structure and support, right? And then the internal assets are those personal character strengths, those social emotional skills, the attitude that person possesses. And so I'll give you just a moment to dive in and look at those. As you're looking at those, the PowerPoint screen here, there's under the 2 categories, and there's 4 subcategories. So the external assets are support, empowerment, boundaries and expectations, and constructive use of time. And then the internal are commitment to learning, positive values, social competencies, and positive identity. So I'm going to give you just a moment to kind of read through those. What you'll want to take note is on the right side, there's a percent. And so they surveyed you to see what percent of them felt like this was true for them. So for example, number 1 is family support. Family life provides high level of love and support. 73% of the students surveyed agreed to that. So take a moment and go ahead and look at all 40 of those, read through those. And as you're reading through those, I'd like you just to maybe put something in the chat, maybe which one is most important to you. What is interesting to you? Is one of the characteristics interesting, or is a percentile interesting? Is something surprising to you? And Kim, I can't see the chat. So if you wouldn't mind maybe being the facilitator of what's been put in the chat, that would be great. Now that you've had some time to look at the 40 developmental assets and see what is important for our youth to possess, I want to show you just some of the results from the surveys and the research that Search Institute has done. And so on this slide, you'll see succeeds in school, good health, exhibits leadership. You'll see they all go up at an angle, the more assets a student possesses. So that 0 to 10, they're not very likely to succeed in school, but those 31 to 40% are, and then you continue to grow from that. The same is on maybe those risky behaviors that we know students might engage with. And so alcohol, drugs, sexual activity, violence, you're seeing that we have students who have 31 to 40 assets. Their percentiles are very minimum to do some of these risky behaviors. Whereas if you only have 0 to 10 assets, you're much more likely to participate in risky behaviors. Search Institute has found that optimum spot is 31 to 40%, or not percent, sorry, 31 to 40 assets is that optimum spot for kids to be at. And we also have found out that less than 25% of our kids are in that optimum 31 to 40 assets. So we definitely have some room to grow to help them.
Erica,
I want to make this, yeah.
I was going to tell you in the chat, Renee commented that she feels like positive values are important to her. And Stephanie wrote, she thought it was interesting that only 25% of youth felt like their communities value them. This makes our work elevating youth voice even more important.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah. A lot of times, in reference to Stephanie's comment, 25% feel valued, right? That's 1 in 4 students. And a lot of times we, in general, look at kids as being problems, right? Or something to care for, instead of being able to use their excitement for new things, their willingness to, they are easier to get out of their box and try new things than adults a lot of times. And so you're right. It's interesting to see that they're seeing that they're not valued and that they have something to bring to the plate for our communities too. Very good. Thank you, guys. Back to this, I just want to highlight the slide before was talking about risky behaviors, and those who didn't have as many assets have higher percentage of doing risky behaviors. Putting this into our home, this is Youth Risk Behavior Survey data. This data is collected every other year in 9th through 12th grade students, and we're seeing 1 out of 8 students using alcohol, had alcohol at 13 or before. So I have a 13-year-old who's in the 7th grade. That's a scary fact as a mom, right? Drug use, 19% of Nebraska high school students reported ever using marijuana. 1 out of 9 students were currently using marijuana. Lots more. And if you're interested in data, I can give you a lot more of that. But for sake of time, I just want to go through these fairly quickly. Tobacco use, 23% of Nebraska high school students reported using some kind of tobacco product in the past year. The good news, nearly half tried to quit. And then we talk about violence and sexual activity. In the past 12 months, 8% were threatened or injured with a weapon on school property. 20% were in a physical fight. Again, more data that I'm happy to share with you when we have more time. And then mental health and instability. So those suicidal thoughts and being bullied, and ACE, which is adverse childhood experiences, affect your mental health. And then that all plays into whether you're choosing some of those risky behaviors. So just looping Search Institute's research into our research and letting you know, like, yeah, we are seeing the same thing. And our students in Nebraska need someone to build some assets in them or help them build those up in themselves. I want to now take you to what are asset builders like. So you thought about that positive person who was an asset builder in your life. And like I said, I had done my brother, and then you did your plus signs or your stars. And so this is where we're really digging in a little bit to the asset builders. Like, the 40 developmental assets are important, but really, how can you and I, or how can our staff do that? And so there's 2 ways. Asset builders are beers and they're doers. So that beer is your character, right? And then that doer is something that people do. So sometimes people are so busy doing that their actions don't come from positive core qualities like the ones we identified in our asset builders. Their actions may actually have unintentional negative effects on youth and can breed resentment because their action isn't in correlation with their being. And so we're doing, but were not being present and providing that care. And so they worked two different things, but they work together to make a well-rounded asset builder. Oh, which in your handout, I shouldn't have clicked my screen yet, but in your handout, H3, I think it maybe is page 4 if you use that QR code, says what is an asset builder? And here are some things that are very practical for you to look at. You know, like an asset builder is open and honest and an active listener. They're reliable and trustable. What do? They say hello. They use the student's name. So this worksheet is great for you to take and say like, hey, staff, as a whole, we're going to work on doing this and this and this, you know, and we're going to touch base on see how we're doing and see if we need to support each other in doing this. So H3 in the corner up here is what is an asset builder, and that will be very practical and useful for you to take out into your work. Moving forward, strategies for action. So like, how do we take this into our work, and what do we do? That is also in your handouts. That's H5, moving to action is what you'll see. And so making it possible, make asset building a part of everyday life. Like, what are some things you already do that you can simply add on to? So if the after school club is already structured to do A, B, and C, what can we do to implement a little bit more into what you're already doing instead of adding a new task? How can we rearrange that? Make it simple. Identify simple asset building actions that you can do. And so what I would encourage you to do is with your staff, or if you're going to engage your students in your after school club, give them the 40 assets, have them star what they're naturally good at or what they already do, and then have them circle maybe some ones that they need support or ideas on how to do. But build some momentum with the things that they're already doing and have them track that and recognize that they are already doing them. Make the most of your available time, right? We all have a lot on our plate. And so just trying to be intentional with what you have. And then commit and don't forget. And so this H5 you can definitely use, and they can sign it and date it, and you guys can pull it back out, or you can post it on the wall, or you can make something a little bit more fun than this to put up. But make that commitment, whatever you guys decide that will look like. And this could look different. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, Scott, you can feel free to unmute yourself, but he said that when he did the assets for himself, he ranked low, but that doesn't always indicate your life. It just shows how we deal with things, and building assets makes a huge difference in everyone's life.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott, for saying that. When did you rate did you just do it right now, or had you done this previous?
Actually, I got trained in assets, and I actually was a trainer back in the day when I was out of the Hastings area 10 plus years ago. I think one of the things, the reason I mentioned that, and I probably wasn't very clear in my chat, is that when you have somebody do like you just suggested, like take the 40 development and all 40 of them kind of circle, it was kind of amazing to me in the audience. We would get people who would rank like low teens, right? Low teens with their numbers. And it really brought out sadness in them. And we had to recognize, and we had to say to them, even though you ranked low, which I did, I mean, I ranked I think I was like 14, 15, but yet I had that one powerful person in my life that made a difference. Mm-hmm. So people don't always say, well, gosh, I rank low, so I should be using drugs, and I did all these risky behaviors and whatever. It doesn't always mean that, but there's the suggestion in the research says that could happen. So developmental assets are so important.
Thank you for sharing, Scott. And you're right. When I went and got trained in it, one of the gals was like, we looked at the percentage and we did that. And she's like, well, now I feel really depressed because I feel like we're doing A, B, C, and D to help kids, and these stats are really discouraging, and so that's a good point. Like, it's all about perspective, and really, like, okay, yeah, you maybe should have fell into that category, but luckily you had a good person in your life that was an asset builder, or we are doing these things, but maybe we need to retweak them, so it's just a point to evaluate, and yeah, but it can get discouraging. I definitely saw that in my training as well. As you think about this, I would encourage you for strategies for action. Like, think about where would you like to use some of this work? When do you want to use it? How? Who are you going to do it? Make that when, how, who plan as part of that commitment. And then, as you said, as you hit as Scott said, like, oh, that was really hard for some people. So as you hit barriers, if you have a team that's all committed, they can help pull you around and see a different perspective. What's next? So, right, you could bring this training can be up to 4 hours. So we had like less than a half hour together. So I try to give you a very quick overview, a little bit of hands-on to make it hit home with you, a little bit of information about them. But they have, Search Institute has training that can be up to 4 hours. I myself is certified. Cody, our art specialist at NDE, is certified to do that. Or there's others. Scott, maybe you still want to do it. So you could bring training to your club. You could bring the training to your staff in your club. You could bring it to parents. Like, I know you have parent engagement nights. This is great for parents to be brought forward to and been like, oh, that's really important. Like, I should be more intentional with their own kids. So definitely the training can come, and it can come in a short thing like I'm doing today, 30 minutes, all the way up to a more intense 4 hours. Search Institute is a great website. And let me look on my notes. I can't remember. My blue QR code. So the blue QR code over here will take you to 40 developments broken out by age group. And so they break it out from like 0 to 3-year-old, 3 to 5, 6 to 9, 9 to 12. Don't quote me on these age ranges, but they break them out because your expectations will change a bit. So there's one of them that's 20, time at home. Well, your time at home when you're 0 to 3 compared to when you're in your teens and those peer relationships are important changes a bit, right? And so you'll see some change over some of the assets, but not all of them. So that's that blue QR code. The red QR code goes to the Search Institute website, and they have a lot of different resources. They have more surveys that can be taken. And they have this family connections, which is called Keep Connected. I don't know if you can see it on my screen, keepconnected.searchinstitute.org. And they have lots more free resources. They have an 80-minute training that you can do on there. They have expectations for like 0 to 3-year-olds. Here's what's normal. Here's what you should say or do, which I know a lot of times when you get young staff, they don't have kids of their own. They haven't experienced that. They could use some more of that. They also have a lot of good stuff if you do parent newsletters for the parents to be engaged with. There's a family quiz that the kids can take and the parents can take, and they can compare and see how they're doing and maybe where they should focus. So that Keep Connected would be a great resource for you guys to utilize. I am a part of the Office of Coordinated Student Support Services and a part of the mental health team with the AWARE grant. And so if you're wanting to bring more of this into your club, we do have some funding that would be possible. So you can definitely reach out to myself, and I can and see what we can help you with on that. And then lastly, I'm going to leave my email here, and we're out of time. So I hope I didn't talk too quick, but gave you a good overwhelm umbrella of what 40 Development and Assets is about.
Thank you so much, Erica. Is that okay with you if we just post the links, both of those links that you shared via QR code and your PowerPoint?
Yeah,
on the
you bet.
StayConnected?
Yeah, I can email you the PowerPoint is that the best?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. And even if we've had some experience with the 40 developmental assets, a great reminder and really wonderful resources. Thank you.
Yes, you
And people
bet.
might want to get in touch with you as they plan family nights or staff training, if that's okay.
Yes, you bet. And I had my Search Institute hat on. I did want to put a quick plug in and put my Walk to Unlock hat on. So I'm in charge of Walk to Unlock Nebraska. We have our 4th trail coming out in February, which will be the Southern Loop. And so we are looking for CLCs to pilot that with us. The good part about that is you get a big map and you get some prizes. The obligation piece of that is to do the physical activity and the trail with the students. And then there's pre and post surveys for the students to fill out, like 5-question quick surveys. And then a midpoint and a final for the teachers to fill out, just so we tweak our trails to what's needed.
Thank you, Erica. You're involved in a lot of very cool, interesting, and important projects. So we appreciate it. Just great to be able to work with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you to everybody who took the time to join today. I know this is a busy time of year, but we really appreciate it. We will not have a StayConnected webinar on January 4th because a lot of folks will still be on a holiday break. But January 18th, Andrea Riley, she oversees the school nurses across the state. She's going to be doing a webinar on infectious diseases and some resources they've developed that you could use with your after school program, and also bugs in school. So that should be fun and interesting. And then save the date for February 1st. Jeff Cole is going to talk about the Beyond School Bells Innovation Invitational that'll be coming up. So we hope you want to learn a little more about that and participate in that great learning experience too. Thank you so much to everybody, and have a nice holiday. Take some time for yourself during the break. Look at the developmental assets and grow some of those in your free time, or share some of those with others. Thank you. Thanks, Erica. See everybody soon.